I, in fact, indeed did make it back. I just was setting up still. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Good Morning Source Gaming. Now, give me 2 seconds as I adjust the volume on all of this, just get everything set up, and then I will hop in. How do I want to do this? Volume mixer, there you are. Bring you down. So I want to keep a bit of music on in the background, but I don't want it to be too overpowering. Now, as I was saying, welcome to another episode of Good Morning Source Gaming. Today I'm your host, NantenJex, and joining me is the very sleepyhead, AShadowLink.
I woke up 4 minutes before the stream started. I literally had a nightmare before the stream started where I woke up at 2 o'clock and I'm like, oh damn, I woke up late again. I'm sorry, guys. And then my eyes shot open and I opened my phone and it says 9:56 and I'm like,
No.
I can make it. I can get up. I can get up.
Luckily for you, you made it. You were here before I was ready to finish setting up. So, GG, well done.
Everything works out in the end.
Exactly. So, guys in the chat, let me know how the audio and stuff sounds. I wanted, like I said, I want to have a bit of background music and stuff, so I'm keeping the DS music rolling. And luckily for you, ShadowLink, you probably won't need to do as much talking this time because it's going to be a lot of this stream is going to be what I've been playing over the last week at Gamescom 2023.
Just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Your microphone is just a tad too loud.
Tad too loud. Got it. It is sort of on full blast here, so let me just bring that down. Does that sound a bit better? Let me know if it does.
A little bit more.
Just a little bit more. Okay, bring that down just a tad more. Okay, hopefully that's good, and I'm not bursting anyone's eardrums at 10 in the morning. Might just be the result of the second cup of coffee I've had.
No.
But yes, I'm just going to get comfy. So this is the second Gamescom I've been to. The last one I went to was 2018 when Smash Brothers was there. And now that we can all start travelling and stuff all over again and conferences are coming back, I thought, well, let's go to Gamescom again because there's a lot of exciting new stuff on the horizon. And I asked everyone in the Discord what games they wanted me to check out. I had a bunch of games that I myself wanted to check out. And in total, I played 37 games over this last week. Yes, some big ones that everyone knows, and then some obscure ones that people may never have heard of before. And I want to talk about my time with all of these and let you know whether or not they get my recommendation. So
it's time for the longest what we've been playing section since I gave a college lecture on the Yakuza series.
Yep, pretty much. Well, you did Honkai last week as well, so
no, I did 15 minutes of Honkai, which I might add has become some of my favorite games of all time, and then I talked for an hour about Garden of Banban.
Yeah, yes, you did as well talk about Garden of Banban. Which was my first experience learning about that game. So if you want to see that stream, watch that stream after this one. I will be sharing my thoughts on Honkai slightly later down because that was one of the games I played over this week. But for now, I've got a specific order that I've set these up in. So let me just grab the first game of the show. And it's going to be Sonic Superstars.
Yo, Santiago?
Yeah. So this is the game. This is one of the games I've been looking forward to this year. The return to 2D Sonic greatness.
Okay. One last thing.
One last thing. Mm-hmm.
Just move a little bit away from your mic.
All right. I'll push the mic a little bit back. Was I peeking or something?
Yeah.
All right, push the mic further back.
Okay, you're good. You're
Good.
definitely good now.
Good, good. All right, so let's talk about Sonic Superstars. So I played this game twice at the show, once on the Switch and again on the PS5. I only played it in solo mode, and I played as every character except Knuckles, because I wanted to chuckle while I played. So I started. So I played through. The demo was just 2 stages: Bridge Zone, both acts and the bosses of both of these stages, but the Bridge Zone and the Speed Jungle, I believe it was called. And I actually think they might have done it. I think that Sonic Superstars might be the first 2D game sans Mania that actually feels right to play.
Oh my god, they finally nailed the classic Sonic physics in a 2.5D game.
I know, it's incredible. It was actually like very fun. I thought the physics were like super on point. The level design was also pretty alright. Bridge Zone was pretty good. I like Bridge Zone. Speed Jungle had a bit in the beginning that I thought was super annoying. It's like a lot of tubes that you go into that it throws you off in different directions. And I got stuck in like a loop for a while when I was playing as Sonic. So that was annoying, but it made up for it with later sections and set pieces, of which they're fully taking advantage of this being a modern game to have things happening in the background and stuff, and even throwing the player into the background for certain sections. There's a lot of maneuverability around the stage and lots of different pathways you can take. Like you can run a lot, you can do all your usual classic Sonic stuff, but you can also like run along walls if they're in the background, and you can use the special chaos abilities to now get about. The 2 chaos abilities they had in the show floor were the water and avatar abilities, and water allows the characters to... It's very situational. You just sort of turn into a water version of the character, jump into a waterfall and ride it upwards, basically. So it's a very easy way to get up to the top, and I imagine that's what most of these Chaos Emerald powers are going to be, ways to make the game just slightly easier for the player, but obviously you need to find the Chaos Emeralds to get them. Avatar is that one that they showed off in all the trailers where there's like a ton of Sonics just running across the screen.
Mm-hmm.
That one... So that one is I have a few problems with. It makes bosses, so I fought 4 bosses, and I only had Avatar access for 2 of the bosses. One of the bosses was immune to the Avatar ability, which is fine. That one was actually probably the best boss I fought, because you had to basically make it hit himself with his own attack in order to do damage, which was pretty cool. But the other boss, I hesitate to even call it a fight, because I just activated Avatar and just obliterated it. Like, Avatar lasted long enough that I could hit the boss as many times as it needed to die, and it didn't do anything to me. And that's kind of a bit too... And you can't use this like super in succession, they need time to charge up, but that was very overpowered. And Avatar has another issue, specifically on the Switch. It makes the frame rate absolutely tank. It's...
I was going to ask.
Destroys the frame rate.
I was going to ask.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
So I played the Switch version first, and I was enjoying my time in Bridge Zone. I noticed the frames dipped slightly, and in between level or scene transitions, like a yellow sort of level transition appears, and you can see the frames visibly drop as it's trying to load the next level in. But that didn't bother me so much because you're not actually playing at that point; it's basically the loading screen. But on Speed Jungle, when I was activating the Avatar powers and stuff, everything just tanked and died for a couple seconds. And I was playing this single player, so I can't imagine how it would be on multiplayer when you've got 4 characters all running around at the same time, or in sections with a lot of enemies. It's probably not great. Now, luckily, the PlayStation version didn't have that issue. The frame rate was fairly stable throughout the entirety of that. So that was... as much as I want to get it on the Switch, if frame rates are a real issue for you, then I don't think I can recommend the Switch version of this game. I think you'd want to pick up the PlayStation or Xbox version of it. Or PC.
I figured ever since I found out. It's locked to 30 frames per second, right?
Yeah, Yes.
Yeah, ever since I found out that like Switch version was a no-go.
Yeah, it's a shame. I always prefer Sonic games on Nintendo systems, but I got Frontiers on the PS4 for this exact same reason, and I think I'll probably end up doing the same for this as well. Which just sucks. There are a few other things for Sonic Superstars before I move on to the next game. There's loads of special zones in this. You've got special zones where you get a Chaos Emerald for doing them, which you find by going through a giant ring. But then you've also got these secret warps that just take above checkpoints that take you to rooms where there's like you just basically either fall or ascend while collecting rings. And then you've got these other rooms that take you to the Sonic 1 style special zones, where you're having to maneuver through a little maze as it spins around, and you get medals for that. And I'm not entirely sure what the medals do. I initially thought that they were the equivalent of like the star coins from New Super Mario Bros., where there's like a set number of them per level. But that doesn't seem to be the case, because if you replay a Chaos Emerald special zone, you get 5 medals instead, because it seems like in this game, you get Chaos Emeralds, there's 1 per zone. And so you can't like just find multiple rings and get all the Chaos Emeralds like before Zone 3, right? There's a Bridge Zone has a Chaos Emerald, and once you get that Chaos Emerald, any other special zone you enter just won't have one. So you can't get all 7 Chaos Emeralds until towards the end of the game, which I suppose is a decent enough balancing act for it.
Yeah.
But that's quite different from the usual 2D Sonic approach. Also, every character has their own little intro animation. I don't know if it will. I hope that means that like each character has its own sort of little cutscenes between worlds. That would be nice. Like Sonic and Tails start with them chasing Eggman. Amy's hanging out with all the like the flickies and the animals when she sees them chasing Eggman, so she chases after. And Knuckles is chilling by the Master Emerald when he sees all this go down, and he then is prompted to go and run after them. So like, every character has its own little startup thing, which is quite cute. I'm curious to see if they continue that throughout. But yeah, overall, I think Sonic Superstars is lined up to be a really good game, at least on the PlayStation 4. We'll see if the final version of the Switch can improve some of the performance issues. But right now, like it's not unplayable. Like I should say, I got through Bridge Zone on the Switch version pretty easily, and it was pretty fun. But not the second I got unlocked the Avatar ability, things just started going downhill from there as things got messier. And this is all again in single player. I don't know how multiplayer is going to affect things, both from a level design and a performance issue. Because I don't really get how multiplayer works in this, because the stages feel like classic Sonic stages, meaning that you like get thrown forward quite a lot, and I could easily see you just leaving the other players behind. So I kind of wish I got a chance to try it.
That was always the problem in Sonic anyway, when you had a second player there as Tails.
Yeah, and in that game it didn't matter so much because Tails is just basically an extra.
Tails just automatically catches up.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2. I do not recommend playing Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2.
No. But I would recommend playing this from what I played. But yeah, that was Sonic. So we're going to keep the Sega train going, because next up I'm going to talk about Persona 3 Reload. A game I waited like an hour in queue to play, because it was one of the games I didn't manage to get an appointment to actually play. And I can certainly say that this is a Persona game.
So do you have any experience with the original Persona 3?
I have experience with Persona 3 Portable, but not the
That's
original.
Good enough.
Affairs.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and
Portable's the important one anyway.
So yeah, and I actually only played Persona 3 Portable earlier this year. Like I played that version they brought to Switch. That was my first time playing through it, and like playing through this game, it definitely just feels like the Persona 3 story, the Persona 3 characters. Obviously, the demo had there were 2 demos. The one where you ran through Tartarus. And then one where you did the monorail boss fight. And so I tried both of them. And it's the exact same story. There's not really any changes here. It's obviously new voice actors, but as far as I can tell, all the dialogue is the same.
Really?
Yeah, at least for the most part. I don't know it word by word, obviously, but there was nothing story-wise.
It hits all the same beats.
Yeah. Like the characters all acted like how I remembered them from Portable, and the story progression of the monorail section was the same as it was in Portable. So there might be it might have been rewritten, but the same beats, were there.
Okay.
But like presentation wise, it's definitely taking from like Persona 5. Like if I had to sum up this game in like one sentence, it's Persona 3 but with a Persona 5 coat of paint. The way that the UI menus and go, like, it's not the same style obviously because Persona 3 has its own style, but the menu UI and stuff is all very similar to Persona 5. It's like all the character models, the shading is very different from Persona 5. It's not as cel shaded as that game, I would argue that game is, but it's the shadows are a lot darker in Persona 3 Reload, but it's again sort of presented in exactly the same way that Persona 5 is presented. And in fact, I don't know if it's because it's new or not, like, you know, still in development, I should say, but I actually found in this lighting and stuff, some of the animations were slightly janky or awkward, might be a better word of putting it. Like Yukari definitely gave off the thousand yard stare during cutscenes where she wasn't saying anything but was there.
It's always done that in terms of Persona. It got a little more noticeable with 5, but they kept the camera away from the characters and just relied on portraits to show character emotion. Mm-hmm. Are they actually zooming in on model faces in this game?
No, they still do the portrait thing that comes up, but at least in the cutscene, at least in the scenes that they showed, like one scene where I noticed it the most was the one where they're just about to enter the monorail, and it's Yukari, Junpei, and the protagonists are all standing around outside, and Yukari's like right in the center of the screen, and while the portraits are coming up, you can see that she's just sort of standing there emotionless, I guess, while it's going on. And there's a few other little animation things like that, specifically in cutscenes, that feel very awkward, I guess.
Let's see.
I might have been, it probably was the same in Persona 5, but I feel like maybe the way that game is sort of shaded and how the textures in that game sort of work, they sort of mask it a little bit, whereas I didn't feel like it did that here. Or at least for me, it was more noticeable here than it was in Persona 5.
For like 50 or 60% of the game, whenever there's a dialogue sequence, they're also all wearing masks.
Yes, that probably certainly helps mask that sort of stuff, whereas obviously that's not the case here. So yeah, that's for sure. But I mean, yeah, it's Persona 3, but playing like Persona 5. The all-out attacks have been spruced up, so that like everyone has that kind of, you know how in Persona 5, once you did the all-out attack and then the character you're playing as does whatever pose and then splash screen and stuff, and then it might transition into the victory thing if that's how you beat a battle. It's the exact same thing now here in Persona 3. Every character has their own kind of splash screen stuff where it transitions from the model into the 2D art. So they're definitely taking a lot from this. I will say though, Tartarus aesthetically is way more interesting, I think, in this game. Like you can still tell that the layouts are kind of the same-ish, with like sort of box rooms with that can be sort of repurposed and placed around. So I'm assuming that the floors are all still procedurally generated, quote unquote.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, but the visuals of Tartarus are at least kind of themed. Like the one I walked around was themed around their school halls and stuff.
Oh,
and when you got to like the stairs, there's like a big chain fence. And when you approach the chain fence, it will like come down and play an animation. And that's where the stairs are. and stuff like that. So like they've done things up a little bit in compared to the Tartarus of the old game.
Most of Tartarus for the old game was actually just themed around the school.
Oh, was it?
Because it is the school.
Okay, fair enough. And then I guess maybe because I didn't realize that. Then maybe it's not going to be. I'm hoping it will be. It looked more. It looked better.
They said in interviews that because they can't change how Tartarus is, it has to be procedurally generated.
Yes.
They were going to focus more on making it visually distinct as you went along it. So hopefully, it looks nicer, more interesting along the way. School at the beginning makes perfect sense, at least.
Yes, it does. Like I said, I mean, I didn't realize it was school. Obviously, I know it appears where the school does in Persona 3, but I didn't realize the theming of the first area was on the school. But it's, I guess, pointed out more, and it looks a bit more obvious in this one. It definitely looks different, and I think it looks better in Persona 3 Reload than it did in the original Persona 3, but that's to be expected, I suppose.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, Persona 3, but with like a Persona 5 coat of paint, I guess, over the top of it. It's taking a lot from that game. Or I guess, no, it'd be the other way around. It's more like Persona 5 with Persona 3 over the top of it. Because everything's Persona 3 styled. But yeah, that was one of the Persona games I played. But the other one was Persona 5 Tactica. And I actually think I prefer this to what I played about Persona 3 Reload. Like, a lot of people are obviously super excited about Persona 3 Reload, and I'm sure it's going to be, an incredible game, but it just didn't do anything new. Like, there wasn't anything new about Persona 3, whereas Persona 5 Tactica is a new take on the Persona series, obviously. And I think it does a very good job of bringing all the mechanics of the Persona series into the tactics XCOM, Super Mario plus Rabbids framework. I think I would describe this game as being a less movement-focused Mario plus Rabbids. Because you know how that game, a big part of it is like sliding through enemies, jumping on their heads and bouncing around, and generally just you can move the characters all across the environment, like in a single turn, quite a lot. This game has a lot less of that, but in exchange, it takes basically every mechanic you could think of from Persona and reimagines how it would work in a tactics thing. So if you get the weakness, the usual Atlas, you hit their weakness, they fall over, you get another turn. That increases your movement range so you can go further. If you knock someone down, and you position your characters in a triangle, you can do an all-out attack, which has a specific name in this one. I can't remember what it is. That just does loads of damage to any characters that are in between the triangle. So even if you only knock down one character, as long as you position your characters well enough, you could hit various other enemies who haven't had their turn yet and do big damage to them. And it doesn't actually... Doing that doesn't actually waste your turn as a character. So you can then do something else afterward. And every character has their own special gimmicks and elements for it. Joker doesn't have his... You can use any Persona thing anymore. He only has Arsene. And is built obviously around dark magic and stuff. Whereas the new girl, whose name I can't remember now off the top of my head, her entire thing is about light magic. She doesn't actually have a persona, but she's about light magic and shooting through cover. Her special ability allows her to shoot enemies through cover if they try and... No, I don't even know if it's if they try and move. I think it is just you can ignore cover for a turn if you activate hers. And every
wait, she just uses magic?
Yeah, well, she doesn't have a persona. She has a spear, which she hit. It's just a physical attack. So if you get up to an enemy, you can do a physical attack, which knocks the enemy back. And if you knock them into a wall, then it actually ricochets them over the character's head, and they land somewhere else. Which she uses a spear for. But she has access to magic, which is like light magic. Specifically, she has the ability to, I believe it's confuse opponents. Forget. No, it makes them forget. That's what that does, and then they might not have their turn if it triggers. whereas Joker can make enemies fall into despair, which will make them like potentially not attack as well. Morgana just had wind, which blows enemies around the field where it hits. The magics are kind of like their range, and then their guns are just the standard attack, and then their physical weapons, like knife and stuff, are only used for attacks and nothing else. At least in the demo, anyway, I should say. But other than that, gameplay-wise, it just kind of plays like how you would have expected it to play from something like Mario and Rabbids and XCOM. You pick your team of 3, and then you take your turn moving them all around, and you can like move one around, then swap to the other, move them, then swap back to the first one and attack. Like their turn doesn't end until you've actually done an attack, or used an item or something like that. Done an action, I guess I should say.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, it plays just like exactly as it looks. But I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was like fairly well polished. I thought the dialogue was pretty fun. I thought the level designs. It was I only got to play like the tutorial level, so Morgana's teaching me how to do everything as they go across through it. But the level that for the sake of tutorials was pretty well put together. So yeah, I really enjoyed Persona 5 Tactica. It made me more interested in actually picking up the game. So it's a shame it comes out the same day as Super Mario RPG, but maybe it's something I will like put on the Christmas wish list for that one. Alright, so the last Sega game I played while there, because they had a few, was Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name.
Yo!
The Adventures of Joyu on the fucking fake Osaka ship that he's in. This game is, I mean, it's Yakuza, right? So this game is incredibly goofy, I think, in my opinion, because they've basically turned Kiryu, who they call Joyu, into a James Bond-esque spy.
Yeah, they sure have.
Complete with his own set of spy gadgets to help him out in combat that are all incredibly silly. He can call in attack drones. He has like a Spider-Man style whip wrap-up thing. Like he can basically web people and then swing them around or keep them tied up through stuff from like his watch or something. He has like Shadow the Hedgehog style jet boosters on the bottom of his shoe, where he can basically so he basically stands there and charges up, and then will like not even dash, more like just glide forward really fast and plow through people as he does it. Yeah, and then he had one more spy gadget.
The exploding cigarette.
Yeah, he had. Yes, it's the exploding cigarette. He can basically lob them at people like grenades. That was the other one, or like proximity mines, I guess.
I saw that in the second trailer, I fucking screamed.
Yeah, but like, because otherwise combat is the same as it was in like the last not JRPG Yakuza game, but it has all of these gadgets that you can do just by holding down whatever the button. So triangle is the drones, I think, circle is the spider web, square is the Shadow the Hedgehog boots, and X is the cigar grenades. And so you just incorporate them into the fighting style and just beat up loads of people. And then
you have to hold another button to use the gadgets?
No, I don't think you do. No, I don't think you just hold down the button.
You hold it down. Okay,
yes, yeah. It's not press it. You just hold the button down. So if you press square, normally you'd like punch, but if you hold it down, then he'll do whatever gadget it is that he needs to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then so you got that combat section, and then you got the usual Yakuza stuff. So the setting is like on a fake Osaka carnival on a boat in the middle of the Japanese sea, and you can play. I played some blackjack, which I lost. I played some wooden card game that I never heard of before that I won. I played some darts, which I lost. I dressed Kiryu up in like open, no shirt, red leather jacket, fedora, and sunglasses with tiger pants and fucking flip-flops, and then just walked around the boat like that was a normal thing. And Kiryu can also enter into, which is like the main focus, the reason he's there, is he's entering this coliseum to fight people in like a cage match. So you also get like a wrestling outfit that you can dress Kiryu up in as well, and that can be customized. So I put him in like this black spandex outfit with a it's Japanese festival mask and then face paint underneath, just because I could. It has all of the. It is just more of what I think people like from the Like a Dragon series, except around the context of Joryu, the secret spy who immediately gets called out for looking out of place the second he lands on this boat, and then attacked by Yakuza. It's silly fun, but like the other Like a Dragon games, it's like a lot to do outside of just the combat stuff. There's a lot to explore on the boat, a lot of mini games to play, just a lot of fun. So yeah, Like a Dragon Gaiden was a good time. So that is all the Sega games I played. They had a few more there, like Samba de Amigo, but I just didn't get around to playing them. So now I'm going to move on to some indie games. A few indie games to knock off the list. The first of these is Another Crab's Treasure, which is the newest game by Aggro Crab, who did Going Under. And this Another Crab's Treasure is a Souls-like game where you are underwater as a crab, and you're a hermit crab, so what you're doing is you start off without a shell, and then you've got to find new shells, and each of your shells give you special powers. Like, sometimes it's just more defense, but like there's a soda can shell, which gives you the ability to basically release loads of soda bubbles that pop and knock enemies back. And you're fighting other crabs, more realistic looking crabs, who are holding like forks and stuff, and you've got like a fishing hook, which you can also upgrade and get different types of hooks. And yeah, it's got all the sort of Souls combat of dodging and blocking and trying to pull off stuff and knocking enemies off of ledges. But this game is also, I would say, a lot more platformer heavy than the Souls-like games are. Like, it has like 3D platforming sections. I wasn't very good at this game, I must admit. I died quite a lot. Sometimes from just being negligent in combat, and sometimes from just tripping and falling in a 3D platforming section. So I didn't end up playing a massive amount of it. But from what I did play, yeah, it seems like it'll be quite fun. It seems like it'll be quite hard as well. But if you are probably more familiar with Souls-like games than I am, then you'll probably easily acclimate to it. But Another Crab's Treasure, it was very enjoyable. So that's one to look out for. Another game I would let's get the next one up. So another game that I also only played for a little bit was SteamWorld Build, which I couldn't find just a key art for, so here's a screenshot from it. SteamWorld Build is a city builder game from the SteamWorld universe, and I love the SteamWorld universe. I liked all the SteamWorld Dig games. SteamWorld Dig 2 I gave like 10 out of 10 to, I think, when we reviewed it, so like I really liked it. SteamWorld Build is, I think your mileage will vary depending on how much you like city builder games. It's very much what it is, basically just one of those with all the mechanics you would expect to find in one, but set in the desert as you build a town for robots to live in, and you have to make all the residents happy and stuff. You start with a train station, and then you build roads leading out of the train station and build then residents who go and work in the mines, and they've got wants and needs, so you need to support them by building more structures and stuff, but you've got only a certain amount of money, so you've got to build facilities to get money back. It's the kind of thing that you would expect from a Sim City like, but with robots in the desert. Again, I didn't play a massive amount of this one, to be fair, because city builders just generally aren't my usual go-to. But it was enjoyable for what it was. Next up was a game called Pepper Grinder, which is done by Devolver Digital, I think are the publishers. And this is a game where it's a 2D platformer where you have a big drill arm and you basically have to drill through the ground and stuff. Think of the drill wisp from Sonic Colors, but that expanded out and made into like a much easier to control, expanded out and made into like a full 2D platformer. So that was fun. I played a few levels of that. That does have the new Super Mario Brothers style. You need to find the big coins in every level, and it took me a while to figure out some of the abilities you could do. Like you can press A and it causes you to like boost forward, but you want to do it on specific points to get the best boosts that you can. Because when I picked up the demo, it was already like halfway through level 3. I missed the tutorial for that, so I ended up having to go back to play it. But I enjoyed playing it. It's certainly a game that I'll keep on my radar and pick up maybe when it's gone on sale a bit. I don't know when it releases, actually, this one. I think it's pretty soon, though, because the game felt like it was pretty much nearly there from everything. I don't know. Maybe someone else knows in the comments. They might be able to jump on. I sort of played this game as one of the last games I played. Then next up, another game I'm looking forward to, Anton Blast. So Anton Blast is a Wario Land like with elements of Crash Bandicoot thrown in. I played Pizza Tower earlier this year, which is the other Wario Land like, and I couldn't help but compare the two of them. And I think my takeaways are here is that while Pizza Tower is far more focused on flow and speed running stuff and just trying to go as fast and wild through the stage as possible, Anton Blast feels much more like Wario Land 4 did.
I see.
Even from like its visual presentation, this feels like it could be a Game Boy Advance game. The camera is quite zoomed in. So if Pizza Tower, like I say, the camera is zoomed out so you see more of the level. Whereas Anton Blast, the camera feels like it would fit on a Game Boy Advance screen, and Anton takes up like I don't know, like an eighth of the screen space as you travel through and go through the different rooms and just beat enemies up with your big hammer by charging into them like you would do with Wario, rolling and destroying stuff and trying to pick up as many gambling chips, I think, like casino chips as possible. Yo. That's like the collectible currency. And then it's got the end, you hit a switch and then a timer comes up and the game says it's happy hour, and then you have to sprint to the end as fast as you can. And when those happen, that's quite fun because there's loads of big set pieces happening. Like on the stage I played, like a big blimp starts crashing into things and destroying the level layout that you previously went through. Like there's a lot of fun set pieces that happen during that escape sequence that Pizza Tower and Wario Land didn't do. So that's quite fun. It makes it very energetic, and I think the characters, like the way the animation and the way they emote and stuff is very cool. It's very cool. Like it's very charming in Anton Blast. So this is one I'm quite looking forward to. I think this very demo is probably available on Steam, unless it was just part of the Steam Indie Fest or whatever. So you might be able to go and play it now if it's something that you're interested in. But yeah, that's Anton Blast. Now the next game in this little indie
Anton Blast does have a demo on Steam right now.
Yes, there we go. So you go try it out if anyone's interested. Some of these games I know for sure will have demos, so I'll try and recommend them when I can. And I'm putting Steam links to all of the games I'm talking about, if they have Steam links, in the description below. If they don't have Steam links, I'll link to, like, I don't know, the Switch eShop page or something. So to end off this little indie section, it's going to be one of my games of the show, and that is Billy Bust Up. So this game surprised me. It's a 3D platformer again, but the sort of I guess it's a 3D rhythm platformer. So the game is designed to be like a Disney musical. Every stage has musical numbers. I believe every stage will have like a platforming element and then like a boss. And the platforming element has like I think every set. Actually, no, I don't want to say every stage will have an instrumental thing. Some of them might have vocals, but the stage I played was like a haunted house one. So you started off in a graveyard, and then you walked into the house and stuff. And there's some really cool visuals. I really liked the presentation of the inside of the horror house, as it played really nice, proper music that you'd expect to find in like a Disney musical. And then you encountered the boss, and the whole boss fight was basically a villain song. The main boss you're fighting is singing about how the different ways that he's going to kill you as you're trying to run away from him, and he'll say stuff like maybe put you in a cage with alligators, and literally you fall into a cage as alligators come up and you got to dodge them, and it's really, really well done. Like in proper rhythm game fashion, if you just play to the beat, if you jump to the beat and try and run and avoid obstacles to the beat, you will get through it. You just have to have the confidence that you're going to avoid these obstacles by listening to the music, because he'll do stuff like he pulls out a sword and swings it, and you got to jump over it, and there's no like visual indicator that he's going to do this, but it works with the music. And all right, jump, and like there's one point lightning will comes across the floor in like a set rhythm, and so you just got to press A, jump, 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 and if you do it to the beat of the music, you will avoid the lightning every single time. And one section that really threw me off is that it flipped the entire screen upside down. I ran across a very, very thin ledge, and then as I was halfway across it, the entire screen just flipped up. And all I had to do was keep pushing forward and just believe in myself, but I absolutely panicked and messed up and fell into the lava. Had to pull myself out. But it's just like very, very well done. The music is being written by the main composer of the My Little Pony series. And has a very, very big budget theatrical vibe to it. I don't know how many levels there are going to be. I think I heard there were going to be 15 vocal songs, but there will also then be instrumentals as well. And yeah, it was just presentation-wise, this was probably one of the best ones I'd seen throughout my whole time at Gamescom. The facial animations, I want to point out, are really well done. The way they've done it, the models is they've got the models, just regularly made, cel shaded, and then the facial animations, like the face, the eyes, and stuff, are all a texture over the top. But they're super detailed. And that allows the facial animations for the characters to be very, very expressive. Way more than most of the other games I played. So I was like very pleased coming out of this game. I think it's like gonna be quite a popular one when it comes out, so it's definitely one to look out for. There might be a demo for this as well. I know that the demo I played at the show had been played before. I know the trailer that they got on their Steam Deck is of slightly earlier footage than what I played. And it's like pre-alpha footage, and you can tell just by looking at it, but it was definitely more polished when I played it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think this is one that people should be looking out for, especially if they like rhythm games, and especially if they like 3D platformers, and if they like the cute art style, I guess. So yeah, so that's Billy Bust Up. So next we're moving on to the Nintendo booth, of which there were no Nintendo games, just third-party ones, but ones, I guess, associated with Nintendo. And first up is Prince of Persia. The something. I forgot what the subtitle is. The new 2D Prince of Persia game. This is also really fun. It's a Metroidvania. It's the combat is really good. You can parry, you can slice enemies up. You have a bow and arrow that you can use. Funnily enough, I've just realised there are 2 games on this list that are 2D action games with a protagonist as a sword and a bow. The other one's much further down though. But yeah, Prince of Persia, it's very fluid. The combat is very quick, and it's quite satisfying. You can dash into, like, you can go into a dash and then hit attack and do like a flying kick into enemies. It has like this a Sansa time reset thing where you can hold down the left bumper, and the main character will leave, I guess, an after image sort of where he was, and then if you press that button again, you'll be pulled back to where that after image was, regardless of how much further you've traveled through that room. So that's pretty neat way to save yourself from danger or pull yourself behind an enemy, which you might have to do because an enemy might have a big shield that you got to like get around. And the general platforming of this game is very nice. You can wall jump, run up walls, run across walls in the background, swing across poles. I found myself being just incredibly acrobatic trying to bounce around. I think it's a game that might have a lot of speedrunning potential and potentially even sequence breaking potential. There were sections in the demo that I played that were clearly sealed off for the sake of it being a demo, because there was just basically an invisible wall there. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think people who are excited about this have every reason to be excited about it, because it's turning out to be maybe the best Ubisoft game in a bit. So that's ignoring Mario and Rabbids, I guess. Definitely the best Prince of Persia in a long time. So yeah, Prince of Persia was a fun one. What is up next? Next up is Star Ocean, the second story R. I have never played a Star Ocean game before in my life. Have you, Matt?
No.
It's different. I thought it was going to be a turn-based RPG, but it's not turn-based. It's actually action-based. When you trigger a battle, it will transition into your usual JRPG scene, but then the combat is actually just... It takes place in real time. Press this button to slash, press these two buttons to pull off your special attacks. You can choose to pause the game and then move to spells or strategy or something and then do things like that. But most of the game will takes place in real time, where you play as one of the 4 party members you've got, and then you have 2 summons that you can make. So I had a girl who had like a big robot arm, and then this other character who could just create this massive, big, like, dark energy attack that basically covered the entire area. And the protagonists I had 2 melee guys and then 2 magic girls who I could play as. But even when you got the magic girls, you can still run up and punch people if you just do the regular attack stuff. You're not meant to, obviously. You're meant to use your spells and stuff to attack, but you can just punch. And yeah, it's. I know I played the original Star Ocean. So I'm just sort of assuming this is how it's always been. But it's that in the HD 2D art style, but not really. Like, I don't think this game is being classified as a HD 2D game, like Live a Life and stuff was, but it is basically just that, because the characters are sprites.
Isn't Square Enix, is it?
I think it is, right?
Oh god, it is.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Star Ocean's Square Enix. So yeah, I don't know if it's being classified as a HD 2D game.
It's not developed by them.
That would be why.
It's probably not an HD 2D game.
Yeah, but it's clearly going for that same aesthetic. Like, if you're just looking at screenshots and playing the game. The game is also fully voiced in English and Japanese. It does the Persona thing where the 2D art appears when they're chatting with whoever's speaking. And yeah, it was fun. Without no knowledge of the Star Ocean series, it's hard to know for me to really say what's improved and stuff. But yeah, it was a decent game. Next up, the last one from the Nintendo section was Fashion Dreamer.
Well,
so yeah, the successor to the Style Savvy series. I don't think the demo they had of this was very good. For starters, they only let us play online, and I also had this PR person like over my shoulder, sort of trying to explain what I should be doing in the game, which I didn't quite like.
That's not a good sign usually.
Yeah, I know that some people. So I completely forgot about Fashion Dreamer, so I didn't book an appointment for it. But I spoke to some people who did, and they got to have a look at the single player game. And from what they told me, anyway, from their time, is while it's does have a lot of differences from Style Savvy, a lot of these changes kind of do the same thing that they did in Style Savvy. They kind of serve the same purpose. They've just been presented differently. Like Fashion Dream is quite a fake social media heavy game. The whole idea is that you're basically dressing up people, helping people get fashionable, and then getting loads of likes and influencers as you build up your influence account through the fake social media app. But most of the game is buying clothes to dress yourself up, or meeting people who want to be fashioned in some specific way, and then fashioning them up. And then you get rewards like access to more colours or more outfits, and depending on how well you do, and then more fans and more influencers and more likes on your posts, depending on how well you do. And the online mode lets you basically compete with others online to see who's the most fashionable. Like you can, one of the things that was described to me is everyone will meet the same NPCs, but what outfit they're wearing will sort of depend on who the last person was who spoke to them before it was loaded into your game. So you might dress someone up and then see the same NPC like a day later in a completely new outfit, and that new outfit has been decided by someone else from your, I don't know if it's from your friends list or if it's from just the public, or if the game prioritizes your friends over the others. I don't know how it works behind the scenes. But yeah, and then you you get points and stuff based on how fashionable you've been, and other people online can like your posts as well, so you get likes and stuff through that. And you compete to be the most fashionable person out there. It's definitely a game of the modern era, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I don't know how never got to try the single player, so I don't know how that compares to the actual Style Savvy series, which has always been single player. But the actual dressing up of the characters and stuff, and what sort of style the characters want, and how you go about jobs, was seemingly the same from what I remember of the Style Savvy series. So it is still basically a sequel to that, just with a bigger focus on the online portion of it.
That's a bizarre direction to take it.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in.
It's I think it makes sense from the modern era, I guess. Just with how big social media and Instagram and stuff are. Like, it's very clearly Instagram inspired. But we'll see what it's like. Hopefully there should be more previews out there from people who did get to try the single player, because that's the part that bummed me out that I didn't get to try. Because that's probably all I would play if I did this. I probably wouldn't play the online stuff. Cool. So next up, we have an interesting game, one I didn't know was going to be there, called, also a really hard to find stuff online. It's called Machikoro with Everyone. I can't even find any English key art. So this is made by Grounding, who are the developers of Sakura Samurai, NintenDoji. They helped make World Ends Club, The Good Life. Little Noah, I think, was the latest game they did. But what Grounding actually does, and I remembered reading this and just completely forgot, is that when they're not making video games, they're actually making tabletop games. And they have a rather popular tabletop game that they made in 2017 or 2018 called Machikoro, where you basically play as a town planner competing with up to 5 people, and whoever makes the town best, whoever makes all of the main attractions of the town first wins. But you have to get money in order to build like an amusement park. That's like one of the main attractions. And so to get money, it's all about sort of dice rolls and what you get. So you start off with a wheat field and a bakery, the two, main attractions of every town. And then when you roll a dice, you get to roll a dice, and then depending on if you roll a dice that matches up with the card you have, you can activate that card and get its effects. But you can then spend money to buy more stuff, and things can stack and work with each other. So you can have like a supermarket card, and if you have the supermarket card, you have to roll an 11 to activate it. But if you do activate it, then you not only get 4 coins from the supermarket, but 3 for like every food production card you have, and you can get stuff like, and it's the same for your opponent. So you have like the wheat field, which is a 1 card. So if you roll a 1, you can activate the wheat field, and it gets you 3 coins. But even if your opponents roll a 1, then you also get that effect. So you also can then use your card even on your opponent's turn. And it's all about building up resources, buying more cards, and then eventually being able to build some of the attractions. I'm happy to say that I won when I played. I was apparently the first person to actually win in the demo time limit. So they gave me a dice, which was very fun, which was very nice. It's a fun multiplayer game, and Machikoro with everyone is there, coming to Steam and Switch, and it's just basically a digital version of the physical tabletop game that they've made. I don't know when it comes out. I think it'll be next year. But like I said, I couldn't even find like any English screenshots or key art of the game. Which is why, and every time I look up Machikoro, it comes up with the actual board game, yeah. But believe me, the demo I played was in English, so the final one will be too. Right, so that's Machikoro. Next up on my list, so we're back into some indie titles. So this one I'll cover briefly is called Robo, and it's a basketball game where you play as robots. And it's all about the dunk.
Yo!
So you play on 2v2 basketball. There's like a choice of like 16 or 18 different types of robots you can have. And each one has their own stats. Some are faster, some are heavier, and you can add mod chips to them to increase certain stats. There's campaigns, and there's a whole campaign mode, and you get more points depending on how strong the dunk was that you do. With like the strongest one being this fully charged one where the robot leaps all the way into space and then comes down and dunks in and like slams the basketball hoop into the ground, and you get loads of points for it. It's great. Robo Dunk was a lot of fun. I really like the visuals of this game though. Like I was chatting to the developer, and I commented on how the robots sort of look like toys, and apparently they are. They're actual. All of the robots in this game have been made physically, and then like 3D scanned and put into the game. And like the loading screen shows you the pictures of the robots, the actual physical robots, with information about who made them and stuff like that. Which I thought was super cool. I thought that was like a really cool little feature. I think the presentation is definitely the key takeaway I had coming from this, because it is fun, but I'm very bad at it. It turns out I managed to win, but only just in the games I've played, and I think that speaks more to my skill level than the difficulty of the game itself. But there's like a full campaign mode where you buy more robots and customize them and stuff like that, and you can compete in online, I think, as well, in tournaments. But it is basically just a basketball game. It comes out next month, actually, on Steam. It might just be Steam right now, with the hope that if the game does well, they can bring it to other platforms. But yeah, it seems like I think it's going to be a fun multiplayer game for anyone who likes basketball games like NBA Jam and stuff. Check out RoboDunk. So the next game I have... okay, speaking of robots, we're going to a different robot game. This one's called Bish Bash Bots. And this one is I guess you'd call it like Overcooked, if Overcooked was a tower defense game.
Oh.
So it's a 4-player tower defense game where you have an EMP and all these different types of robots are coming in and they're going to try and destroy it. And so you've got to build towers to stop them, like tower defense, but you can also run around, hit the robots physically, interact with the environment. One level had me go into like a crane, and then I could use the crane like a claw game and pick robots up and drop them in holes. So I was trying to use that to pick up the bigger robots that had a lot of health and drop them into holes while letting my turrets deal with the smaller ones. And each of the 4 main characters also has different skills. So I played as the red-haired girl, who's like the mechanic of the team, so she can upgrade turrets faster than everyone else can. Because that's also something you can do. Every turret has a 1 to 5 star rarity, and you don't need any resources to build up your turrets. You just need the time, because you have to stand there and like manually hit the turret until it builds up enough energy to level up. Or you can find upgrade packs by defeating stronger robots and using them to speed up the process. But Bish Bash Bots is a lot of fun. It got quite hard towards the end of what I played. It got quite difficult. But if you have a team of 4 people, I reckon it would be like a ton of fun running around, just playing a tower defense game. So you can put some people like on turret building duty. You can put some people on trying to hold big enemies back. The amount of enemy variety is pretty good. There's like a boombox enemy that blasts everything away. You've got enemies that use these umbrellas to create shields that you have to go in through the shield and bring it down so that the turrets can shoot all the robots it's protecting. You've got these super fast guys that are really annoying because they go so fast that they like basically just dash past early turrets. So you've got to try and hit them to keep them in place so that the turrets can hit, do damage. I enjoyed this. I think this is, if you liked games like Overcooked and Moving Out, and this is certainly a game that I think people would like. I think this comes out as well soon. I can't remember. It'll be on Steam. I think it comes out this year at the very least. But Bish Bash Bots was good. So next up, we have another game that I really liked, and this one is called Haunty. So I put some key art up here. Let me see if you can guess what the biggest inspiration was for this game. What other game inspired this one?
A Limbo?
No, not Limbo. I'll give you another guess. Let me see if I can get a. Let me see if I can get a gameplay. You know what? Actually, no, I don't even need gameplay because I don't think you'll get it because it surprised me.
I might not get it.
All right. The answer turns out is Super Mario Odyssey. This game has like the vibe of a Limbo or a Hollow Knight. It has really, really beautiful music. Really great. The game is like an isometric. You walk around a world. Everything is hand-drawn. You play as this little ghost in the middle who's just died and woken up and has no memory of their past life. But you have, as because you're a ghost, you have the ability to possess things. So you can possess like turrets. You can possess hills and stuff like that. That doesn't actually do anything. I possessed a hill and it was like, oh, I've been possessed. But unfortunately, there's not much I can do because I'm kind of stuck here. So you might want to move on and possess something else. And game sort of plays like a twin stick shooter. Like you use the right stick to shoot, I guess, spirit energy out, and you can collect resources and other stuff because you can get like tanks and stuff later on that you can possess, but require resources to use. But like, even though the game is the game is so like visually and audibly stunning, I found. But when I got through the tutorial and got to the core gameplay section, I realized that the game is structured like Super Mario Odyssey, and this was confirmed to me by one of the developers. You basically put in a big open area, and you're told that you need to collect these like star fragments. And the star fragments, some of them you can just find lying around, but some of them required doing challenges. Like I found these 3 ghosts who were racing, and I beat them in a race and they gave me a star fragment. Or I found all these enemies that had spikes up and I had to kill them by luring them into bombs, and that gave me a star fragment. And I realized the haunting ability is very similar to the ability that Mario has in that game to possess stuff. You can possess like a ladybug, and then you can use the ladybug to climb trees and then float across the map to different areas. It's it also has like usual sort of coins, but then every area also has its own unique collectible, which is like the purple coins in Super Mario Odyssey. And it's just like they've managed to take like the really great presentation style of games like Limbo and Hollow Knight and use the structure and not level design, but gameplay structure and progression system of Super Mario Odyssey to combined it to make something that's like really fun to play and also like very engaging and immersive to play. So I came away really surprised. Like, I went to play this game purely because I thought that the art style looked like it would kind of be my vibe, but the gameplay was like really good. And once I found out it was a Super Mario Odyssey like, and I started seeing all of the Odyssey type things in the game, I was like sold, basically. So if you've wanted a Super Mario Odyssey 2, this could be. It certainly won't be as long as Super Mario Odyssey, but this is a game to play. This is definitely a game to keep on the radar because I think this will do very, very well. But yeah, I really liked Haunty. So cool. And speaking of Mario likes, he played Born of Bread, which is the next Paper Mario like. So if Bug Fables was like the spiritual successor to classic Paper Mario, this is like the spiritual successor to Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Like, this game is super charming. It looks really good. The dialogue was like top notch. The main character, his name is Loaf. He's super adorable. The game sort of starts with him being made into existence. And so he's like this silent protagonist who kind of runs around and is just a goofy little guy who's only been alive for like 10 minutes and I pushed over a statue and smashed a vase and got a gem from it. And the guard saw me do it and was just like, yeah, you know what, this isn't my problem, I'm not dealing with this, and just walks off. Like the humor is very funny in Born of Bread, and the gameplay plays like classic Paper Mario, except your partners actually feel a bit more useful this time because they're not just combat, they've all got environments affecting things, which I suppose they did do in Paper Mario. Now that I say that out loud,
they do. They do.
I guess it's a bit more pronounced here, maybe, because it definitely felt slightly more standoutish. But yeah, Born of Bread. If you really miss classic Paper Mario, and if you really want something that's like what Bug Fables sort of offered as well, because that's a game I'd recommend, then Born of Bread is certainly one to play this year, because I believe it does come out quite soon, maybe October. Another RPG I played was Terra Memoria. This one is an independent game, but it's also going for that same HD 2D art style. Let's see where my notes are for this one, because I made notes for a bunch of these. I cannot find it. Well, oh wait, no, it will be there. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so Terra Memoria, it's like a JRPG with a whole bunch of different characters that you can swap between. Some of them are support characters, like the musician in the middle, and some of them are attacking characters, like the rhino in the background. He's actually the first character you play as. He's a mage and can do different magic attacks, and you can sort of mix and match. So you have your fighters, who I think you have like all three of them, and the 3 fighters and 3 support characters, and then depending on how they're paired up, they can pull off different attacks and different elemental things, and elements of like, every enemy is sort of weak to 2 different element types, and so pulling off magic attacks to do more damage obviously is the sort of the aim of the game. But the way the game sort of balances itself is you don't have anything like MP or anything like that. It's the turn order that matters. So if you pull off a powerful attack, it means you're waiting longer next time to have your turn. So you can. It's the question of, do you choose to pull off a lot of smaller, damaging but quicker attacks so that you can have your turn faster, or do a massive one that's like a big AoE attack, but then you're waiting a lot longer, because you can do status effects like paralyze enemies, which causes their turn effect to be pushed back further as well. And when an enemy gets really low on health, then they'll sort of panic and they'll start becoming weak to everything. So then you can just go full ham on it. Terra Memoria, it's a very pretty game, but I would say it is basically just a JRPG in a nutshell. So if you like JRPGs, you might like this one. If you don't like JRPGs, you definitely won't like this game. I only played the demo for like 30 minutes, but it felt like I was sort of still in the intro section. Like I only had met 3 of the 6 playable characters. And I'd done really nothing but walk around this Chinese-inspired town and accepted like 1 side quest and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a very pretty game. I'll give Terra Memoria that for sure. So if it sounds like I'm rambling and stuff, which I am because I'm sort of doing this off the cuff, I'm going to have a written up version of stuff on the website later.
Oh, nice.
So that will hopefully make things a lot easier to follow along. Anyway, let's go to Bandai Namco. So we've got and Bandai Namco's. I'm going to just mute the Elite Beat Agents because it's official song. In fact, actually, no, I want to move it up slightly. Okay, sorry, I just didn't want the licensed music in the background then. So Bandai Namco, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon. This is the first Armored Core game I've ever played. And it's really fun. It's like really good. You just big robot go burr, and you got like 3 different types of guns that you can have. Like a machine gun, a homing missile, and a big cannon. And you can fly around as a giant robot and blast crap out of everything. There's lots of different robots, some that are easy to destroy, some with big shields where you got to get behind them. It's yeah. Oh, you can't hear any music. The music's like super quiet. Some people have been able to hear it. Can you hear it? ShadowLink.
Let's find out.
Mm-hmm.
I can very vaguely hear it. If you have noise-canceling audio devices, they'll probably get rid of the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why you should not buy any noise-canceling audio devices, because they are awful.
I'll turn it up slightly. It's just playing the Super Mario 64 DS Peach's Castle at the moment. Anyway, sorry, back to Armored Core. So Armored Core 6 is, just a fun game. I think if there's only one thing I could criticize about it, is that the level design is very, very confusing. At least how it looks, because you have the ability to fly and stuff, exits can be like super high up in corners or stuff like this. I generally didn't have much problem actually navigating through it, but that's because I was really just kind of going straight for the objective marker. I wasn't trying to explore or anything. It feels like the kind of game where if I was going exploring, I'd get like really lost really quickly. But I don't know, maybe that's not actually something that the game encourages you to do, because I just wanted to get through as much of it as I could in the time I had. I will say that after going through many grueling battles, I walked up a set of, I flew up a set of stairs, and then got immediately jumped by a Dark Souls-esque boss, this giant, like, steamroller with spiked wheels that just came out of the darkness straight at me, and ended up, like, trapping me and killing me. So they've definitely learnt from Dark Souls. They've definitely learnt from Dark Souls and the FromSoft's other more recent titles when making this game. But I really enjoyed it. I thought Armored Core 6 was just a lot of fun. And obviously it's about to come out. The reviews just dropped. And all the reviews have been super, like, praising the game. And I agree. I agree with them. I think it's good. Another game that I also enjoyed, and this might be my favourite game of the big mainstream games, was Tekken 8. Tekken 8
Yo.
is just really good. Like I got back into Tekken through Tekken 7, and Tekken 8 doesn't do it a lot massively differently from Tekken 7. It's got this new feature in it that's it's kind of escaped my mind. It's got rage arts and then this new middle form, like where your characters glow blue. Heat, yeah. I think that's it, yeah. I wasn't quite sure how I feel like I activated that whenever I pulled off a really hard-hitting attack. But it was required through heat is what allowed me to sort of pull off my specials and stuff like that, which felt slightly different. But the thing that made me really like Tekken 8 the most was just its sense of impact. Like how Street Fighter 6 has that whole graffiti aesthetic going on, right? And when it does a big attack, and Smash Brothers also has that kind of thing. Tekken 8's impact when you punch someone, from the sound and the effect and the stop, is super satisfying. It's like you can feel like every single hit that you get in on an enemy, on your opponent. And it makes it super satisfying to just pull off combos in this game, like more so than it did in other Tekken games. And yeah, it was just other than that, it kind of just plays a bit like Tekken 7. There is a simple mode added into Tekken 8 for people who aren't used to fighting games, where it basically makes triangle punching. I think it's like triangles kick, squares punch, X is special or unique attack, and circle is another special attack, I think.
I see.
Like it just, and then R1 is to activate heat mode, and R2 is to activate rage arts, and that's it. Like you don't have to really think beyond that, which is nice, for people who have never played Tekken before. It has this easy access mode. But yeah, Tekken 8 is going to be great. I didn't pick up Tekken 7 at launch. I usually don't get into fighting games like very deeply, but I might grab Tekken 8 when it comes out. Is it coming out on PS4 actually? That's a good question. I don't have a PS5, so I could always get it on Steam, I suppose. But yeah, Tekken 8, I really enjoyed it.
Tekken 8 is not coming out on PS4.
Okay, so it's just next gen stuff. Fair enough. Maybe Steam it might have to be. The last Bandai Namco game I played was Sandland, which is the Akira Toriyama short story about the son of the devil, or the son of Satan, I guess specifically, traveling through the desert with two old men in a car. This game was... the demo told me when I started it, but this game was rough playing this. It's clearly very early on. They hadn't lip-synced for a lot of the dialogue yet for the characters. But as a game, it's kind of interesting. It's just a big open world desert that you can either run around on foot or drive around, and you can hijack other vehicles. Like I pulled up on these guys with a tank, jumped out, beat the crap out of them, and then jumped in their tank. I guess think of it like GTA, right, where you can steal people's vehicles. Except think of like the foot combat being like a 3D arena fighter. Like that's kind of what it like feels like you're playing like Naruto Ninja Storm or whatever when you're on the ground, like a simple version of that, but then you also have the ability to just hop in a tank and drive through the desert and blast people with your big guns. And different vehicles you can get give you access to different things. So the main car gives you like speed up, so you can get like turbo and stuff and go fast, whereas the tank can blast open holes in the wall that you can travel through. And it's I think Sandland has a lot of potential. It's just the demo that I played was very rough. So if they can improve upon it, I think it will be a lot of fun as a single player anime adventure game. And they clearly have a lot of high hopes for Sandland. I think they're making a massive deal about it. It's getting its own anime and stuff. But yeah, we'll just need to see a bit more of it. I think just give it a bit more polish. Then I think that's all I played from Bandai Namco. So let's move on to some games that are actually already out, but I'm going to mention them anyway. And the first one, this one's for Push. This is a game that people may have heard of thanks to Push Dustin, but it's called Ruins Magus. It's the only it's the only VR game on this list. Oh no, whoops.
I believe it's Ruins Magus.
Ruins Magus. I pronounced it wrong. Whoops, my bad. Sorry, Push. Ruins Magus it's a first-person VR RPG where you take on like guild quests and stuff, and with your left hand you've got a shield, and on your right hand you can blast people with magic. And the shield you have to use the shield by like literally putting your hand in front of you like you would with a shield, and you can press a button to parry attacks as they come at you, and then with your other hand you're obviously using magic. You've got 2 different types of magic you've got access to, which you can customize, and you've got to you literally aim by putting your hand out and aiming at the opponent and blasting them. I had like a fireball attack that was just your standard fireball, but then I had a grenade that I had to actually do the motion of throwing a grenade at the enemy and doing it right to blow them up, or doing a charge attack where I'd be holding my shield up and then charging with my other hand this big electric AoE attack to try and hit enemies. It was a lot of fun to play. It's coming to PSVR 2 in September, so that'll be its console debut. But yeah, if you've got a VR headset, and I would recommend picking this game up. It's also now fully English voice cast as well, because it didn't when it came out originally. But now they've added it in English, which is also good for people who like that.
I quite like the story of the game, so I would give it a look. It's nice.
Yeah, I think the only reason I haven't played this game properly already is purely because I don't have a VR headset that's not PSVR 1. But who knows, maybe that will change. The MetaQuest 3 is coming out soon, which means the MetaQuest 2 is probably going to drop in price. So that could be time to pick it up. So the other games that are also already out are the Honkai games, the Hoyoverse.
Yo!
So, man, the Hoyoverse stand at Gamescom, I feel like is more of I've got more to say about that than I do about the game itself. Like, Honkai Star Rail, they sort of dropped you off in like a mine, and then you had to go and I did like a regular fight, and then I had to go do a mission where I think I was going down into the mines. It brought up like a board, like a tabletop board, or
they made you play the fucking mining event.
Yes, the mining event was the demo that I had to play. And every character they gave me was like level 70 already, except for Kafka and one other character who were like level 1. So I ended up using a bunch of resources to level Kafka up, because she was like the only character I knew, just purely because she was on the thumbnail last week.
You had to level up.
I had to level Kafka up because she was level 1 for some reason, but all the other characters were level 70. So
that's strange.
I don't know why. I don't know if the levels won't, because I'd obviously played this throughout. Like I was playing this in the afternoon, I think. So I don't know if every character started at level 1 and this is just other people's choices throughout the day. Because it was like less of a demo and more like I think they just had the game running there, and people had the option to either play it on with a controller, with a keyboard, or with a tablet. But yeah, they made me do the mining event, and so I played through that, and yeah, it was fun. I thought it was a lot of fun, but I don't have a massive amount to say about it. And the same sort of goes for Honkai Third Impact.
Honkai Impact Third.
That's it. Sorry,
unhealthy obsession.
Yeah, Honkai Impact Third was way different than I was sort of expecting it to do. They just sort of gave us 27, I guess, chapters or whatever, with each chapter split into acts. I don't know if that's how the game's structured. I was basically on a world map, and I just picked something at random. And then one of the stages I picked, I had a girl playing as this girl in like a red and black outfit with a scythe, and then the other girl, I was like a grey-haired girl with big robot arms, I think.
Yeah, I think that's Seal and Bronya.
Bronya was definitely one of them. I remember. And then
Bronya's the robot one for sure. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about the Scythe because there's like 2 characters that match that.
Yeah, and then there's like this puppet girl, and then she was just the whole level was basically just her summoning monsters, and then me beating up the monsters, and then I got really stuck at one point because I just wasn't transitioning to the next scene, and I didn't know what I needed to do to get it to transition. So I ended up like running over to the puppet girl and trying to hit her, but I think she was an NPC, so it wasn't doing anything. And then eventually the warp appeared to let me transition scene. I was not sold much on as much on Honkai Third Impact as I was on Honkai Star Rail from what I played.
It's kind of an older game and it's less polished.
Yeah.
I've been hearing rummagings about it though, but I can't talk about those because I am scared of MiHoYo.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like my takeaways from this event though were more on the stand itself, because they had this big cube stand, right? And then they had Honkai on one corner, and then they had Genshin Impact on one corner, and then on another corner they had like a big screen showing off trailers and stuff, and they had some people playing music. And then in the other corner they had their new game, Zenless, or whatever it's called,
something.
Yeah. What they did is they had a ticket.
Zenless Zone Zero.
Zone Zero. Yeah. Okay. So they had this ticketing thing where you could get tickets by every time you played one of the games. They'd give you like a ticket, and then once you played all 4 games, you could exchange all 4 games for like a Hoyoverse goodie bag that I saw so many people with around the stall. But the queue to play the new game was so ridiculously long that I gave up on this. Like I played the two Honkai games and then went to go play this third one, and the queue was going on for miles. And I was like, I'm not queuing up to play this game.
I saw gameplay of Zenless Zone Zero, and it looks like it's just like a much more polished, flashier Honkai Impact Third.
That was my impression from the trailer that they put on the big screen of the game. Yeah, just looked like a more modern, action-y game. There were so many cosplayers around the Hoyoverse stand as well. There was one really awkward moment where I was playing Honkai Third Impact, and they had these clearly models that had been cosplayers that had been hired, but they had this like fake ball pit because for whatever reason the booth for Honkai Third Impact was themed around a beach. So it already had
a beach event.
Yeah, so it already had a bunch of the characters dressed up in like bikinis and stuff. But then they had these 2 cosplayers dressed up in like, I guess, as characters from Third Impact, but in skimpier outfits, as they were like in this fake ball pit, taking photo, like having their photo taken by this professional photographer, and then there's my dumbass in the background playing Third Impact behind these 2 cosplayers. Just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and this is all going on here. And in the end, I was like, yeah, I'm not even gonna. I went over to the Genshin Impact area, and it was full of more cosplayers, and I was like, you know what, I can't be bothered anymore. So I still have the tickets and I got a couple stickers from Honkai as well. But yeah.
What stickers did you get?
I don't have them on me, so
okay.
No, I'll take a photo of them both and I'll send them to you later.
Okay.
But yeah, that was my experience with Hoyo Gamescom.
I really like their games. The culture around them is interesting to look at.
It stood out compared to like everything else. Everyone else who was at the show, it really stood out. Not that I'm going to complain about the cosplayers. There were some pretty good cosplayers as well, actually. Very intricate outfits. Anyway, back onto games though. So the next game I want to talk about is called Chessorama. This is a game made by a Brazilian team. It might only be one guy. I think it's probably more than just one person, but I met with the director of the game, and this one's pretty neat, actually. It's just basically a bunch of puzzle games based around the mechanics of chess. So the first one they had me do was this farming game where you have to basically plant seeds across the whole farm. But your character is a knight, so they can only move with the way knights move in chess. So you have to, in as minimal steps as possible, fill up the garden with as many seeds. And the garden layout changes every single stage. But the main thing is you can only stay as the knight. And you can go back the way you came, but you'll trample over the crops you just planted, so you'd have to then come back and plant them again. And you get challenges like do the stage without destroying any crops, or do the stage in under X number of turns. And later on you get stuff like crops that are protected so that you can't jump back on them once you've planted the seeds. So they're inaccessible going that way. So you have to really plan out which way you move to solve the puzzles. And that was just one of the 4 different games. There's another one where you're a football team, basically. You got one guy with a ball, and then you've got bishops and rooks, and you have to set them up and then pass the ball to get into the goal. But like rooks can only kick in a straight line, and bishops can only kick diagonally. And you've got to avoid the enemy team and stuff like that. And there's a battle mode where you can basically play football, but everyone's using chess pieces, taking it turn by turn to try and kick the ball as far across into the opponent's side as possible, to get into the goal. And it was just really fun. And I think what's really nice about this game is that every one of the mini games uses a different chess pieces, obviously. And then once you've done every mini game, then you unlock just chess. And by the time you've unlocked the ability to play just chess, you're now really familiar with the game. You know how all the pieces work. You've been taught chess strategy. And the idea is that you'll eventually get to the point where you understand it's basically introduces players who may not have experienced chess properly into the game of chess and how it works, and that makes them ready to play actual people. You have to unlock the multiplayer by doing single player stuff and learning how to play the game. And it's just fun. They've got they were telling me that they got actual chess masters to play this game and give feedback, and they've done streams of the game on Twitch where they get chess grandmasters to play the game and try and solve stuff and try and solve a lot of the puzzles using different strategies. There's one game where you have to get the pawn to the end of the board so it turns into a queen, but there are as every time you move the pawn, a dragon will appear and attack, and the only way you can protect the pawn is by having another piece adjacent to it. So you have to position rooks and bishops and stuff so that they're all adjacent to other pieces to protect them from the dragon. And it's that one was really hard because if they have to be adjacent to how they would be, so a bishop needs someone diagonally to him in order for him to be protected, and a rook needs someone just adjacent to them. And so if you can't set it up correctly, you can lose it, but sometimes that may be the strategy. Maybe the strategy is actually, I'm just going to burn through as many pieces as possible so I can get this pawn to the goal. It's really promotes different solutions to the problem. So yeah, Chess-A-Rama was actually a lot of fun. It's coming.
That sounds really neat.
Yeah, I think it's just coming to Steam right now, but I think it's one of those games where they'll bring it to consoles if it does well.
Yeah,
and they also have the actual chess pieces that they've made for the game in real life, which they might do a giveaway for. Maybe, who knows? He said he was meant to bring one, and he forgot. All right, another game played. It's called Coney Island. This is currently on early access on Steam, but I believe the full version comes out soon. And it's basically you play as one of these 4 kids. I played as the shark boy in the back there. You wash up on an island that's got pirates on it, and you have to help rebuild the island. So it's a crafting game where you run around, befriend local fauna and wildlife, and craft various things like Minecraft, like you would in Minecraft. So you can plant crops and stuff. You can craft beds so that you can sleep and pass the time. Craft fires in order to cook things. and then you give offerings to shrines in order to open up more of the island or fix some of the island's various problems, like it might be raining. Like there's one section where there was a robot who was in pieces, and I needed to go find his parts and then rebuild him or build new parts for him. And there are all these shrines with frogs, where you offer up a frog and then it gives you advice on what to do next. And it was nice. It was a nice, fun game. I had a pet dog thing that I could get to attack and dig up stuff for me, and you can get like up to 5 different pets following you all at once, which is cute. But they need to be raised. They're like Tamagotchi, so they've got their own mood meter and stuff, and they need to sleep and eat. So you also need to think about preparing food for your animals and stuff to keep them friendly, so that they don't attack you or leave you. It's nice. It's a nice game. Not one I think that I'm super massively into, though, I must admit. Like I enjoyed what I played of it, but I think it's the kind of game where after a couple of times playing it, I at least would get a bit bored of it. But mileage may vary. I think that's just how I am with crafting games. It's like Minecraft as well, I don't get much into. And this one actually has a story, and while I didn't encounter any pirates, I know that there are pirates that you fight in this game. So, I don't think there's much in the way of... Was there combat in this game? Oh yeah, no, there is combat in this game. I made a leaf sword, and then I fought some slimes. So there is combat in this game. It's just that crafting is obviously the bigger focus. Now that I think about it, there's another game that's coming up that's also similar to this. But yeah, Coney Island currently on Steam as an early access title. Alright, next game is Savant Ascent Remix. This one is a remake of a game from like a decade ago called Savant Ascent. It's made by the team that made Owlboy. Looks just as good as Owlboy does. The pixel art in this game and the next game, which is also made by them, is on point. It's like really aesthetically good. And Savant Ascent Remix is an interesting one because the original Savant Ascent it's just like a survival game. So waves of enemies come at you, and you have to destroy them all and try not to get hit like 3 times. But the only thing you can do other than attack with your magic is basically jump and dive. So you got to like jump, double jump, dive, avoid enemy attacks while like using the right stick to aim and the right bumper to like blast attacks off. And just try and survive as long as you can through the various different waves. But it was made alongside music as well. Like the original Savant was made as an accompanying piece to a actual album that was coming out. But is Savant Ascent? I think the actual music is Savant. I think I should have checked this before. I did this. My mistake. Yeah, so it's alongside the original. The original was a game that couldn't be streamed because it used licensed music that it was originally made to accompany. Yeah, so yes, Savant. Yes, so the Savant is the musician, and this game is a remake where he's made an entirely new soundtrack to go along with this remake, one that's specifically for this game. And both it and the game launch in September. And it's like very visually great. The music is obviously also really great. It's very hard though. It's like I like only made it past wave 1 and then died on wave 2 every other time. So it is quite a different game. Maybe Skrillex had something to do with it as well back in the day.
I do not know.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Haitani's comments on there. I'd never heard of the original, so this is all new to me. But another game he showed off, which I really liked, was called Vikings on Trampolines, which is basically Mario Party meets Cuphead as a game. So you've got you basically play the co-op story. There's co-op story mode and a versus multiplayer mode. In the co-op story mode, it's basically like Cuphead. You have to fight bosses, these big, huge bosses, with up to 1 to 4 players, and you can. But the way the game works. Sorry, I should have started with this. The way the game works is that you bounce around on trampolines. You can't move. You die if you fall off of a trampoline. You have to bounce across these different trampolines and grab items that float down on balloons, and then attack enemies with the items. So like, there's a hammer that will basically give you the advantage if you attack, or this thing that puffs you up like a balloon, and then when you hit someone you explode and it does loads of damage. And a throwing axe that you chuck at people to attack from a distance. And it's just really, again, it looks really great, but this one is really fun. In the co-op, in the versus mode, you're basically fighting each other to try and knock everyone off the trampoline and be the one who gets the most kills. Collecting items. And I just played a few rounds against the dev. And it was just very enjoyable, and the stages get super hard. Like, there's a stage based around a tower that spins, and so the trampolines all move along with the tower, and so you have to keep bouncing and trying to trying to not fall while avoiding enemy attack and stuff like that. It's really cool. This one comes out next year. I think it's the intended release date. I don't think it has an official one yet. But yeah.
Okay.
This one is one to keep an eye out for. I think this might have been another one of the sort of games of the show that I really enjoyed. Cool, what's up next? Next is one that people asked me to play. It's Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. So that new Grand Blue game. So I'm not familiar with Grand Blue, the mobile game.
Yeah.
There we go. So I don't know how similar this is. Like, I don't know if they've successfully brought over what the Grand Blue mobile game is like to consoles. But what this game is, to me, is Monster Hunter with a... I don't want to say Devil May Cry. I guess like an character action game sort of moveset.
Yeah.
So you accept a mission, which is usually to kill a certain monster, and you go in with a team of 4 and you pick which character you want to play. So I was playing as Katarina, and then you basically go through a short early section where you're fighting miscellaneous enemies, and then you end up in a big arena where you fight waves of enemies or a boss or anything like that, and you've got just standard attacks and then also special attacks you can do. And then once you've built up a meter, you can do link attacks with everyone, and if everyone pulls off a link attack within a certain time frame of each other, then you pull off like a super link attack. And then if everyone everyone's got a special meter that they build up, and once you do that, you press R2 and L2 together, I think it was, at the same time, and then that activates this massive, wide-ranging, like a special attack in a fighting game type of thing. And you just keep wailing on the boss until it goes down. And if you've got different challenges, it might be to defeat the boss without taking as few damage as possible, or defeat it within the time limit, or something like that. And yeah, you got to just so that the game was fun. I only played as Katarina because I only played it through once, but there's a lot of playable characters from the Grand Blue series that are available here, and each one seems to play different from what I'd seen. But structurally, it's very much like Monster Hunter, but a lot faster. A lot faster than Monster Hunter Generations, even, which was obviously meant to be the fast Monster Hunter game. Battles, I think the demo was only like 15 minutes long, but I managed to beat 2 bosses and a wave of enemies in those 15 minutes. So yeah, I think... I don't know how well that translates the Grand Blue experience over. I know you've got 4 characters in that, but...
I think it's just supposed to be in the universe. I don't think it's supposed to be, like, the game is the same.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's... I'd say the game is fun. if simply for the fact that you're fighting these giant monsters. Right, like, obviously I only played it once. I don't know how the characters can evolve, if you can unlock new abilities for the characters to do, or if it's always just going to be the same 4 powers that every character has.
Yeah.
But I know that there's combos. I know that there are combos, because they gave me like a whole user manual to read when I was waiting in queue. So I know it does have a bit of depth to it with each character. It's just whether or not you can expand on it for the final version. But I'd say this, if you're excited about Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and you've seen all the trailers and stuff, you sort of know. I'd say you'll probably enjoy this game. I don't know if it's one I will get, but I had a good time still.
It's on my radar.
Yeah. Alright, the next game is a very different sort of game. We're down to the last 8 now. So the next game is called The Precinct. It's a
I've heard of this one.
Yeah. So this one is a police simulator, basically, but not like a detective game. It's not a detective game. You play as like a beat cop. You go through. If you look at like trailers for it, you might think of the original GTA games, in that it's sort of like this isometric. The camera is quite high above as you drive around, run around, or fly around in a helicopter around a sort of open world that's obviously nowhere near as big as Grand Theft Auto's open world, but it's still pretty big. There were like 2 islands in it. I only got to look at one of the islands. Then they're connected by bridges. But I think the thing about this game that really stood out to me the most is the like absolute dedication the devs have to letting you roleplay as a police officer.
Oh boy.
So you can do the exciting things like bank robberies taking place, and so you get a call that there's a bank robbery, you put your sirens on, you and your partner drive over, you get behind cover, and then you point your gun at them and you tell them to freeze, and then if they don't, so that's something that the devs told me. Whenever a crime is happening, you cannot be the one who shoots first. You will get penalized by your boss if you shoot first. If they start shooting at you, then you can.
That's not very realistic.
Then you can open fire. Well, we had a chat about this because I asked whether or not you could take bribes, and they sort of laughed and said no, because they want you basically play a by the books cop. Like you play a cop who follows the actual rules. Oh, I need to change this song as well.
Yeah, that's not very realistic.
So yeah, you got to play a by the books police officer who follows the rules, but with a bit of freedom. So like, you won't get penalized if you accidentally kill a civilian or 2 during a car chase. Or
I mean, that one's realistic, but like, what?
Well, so they were trying to find the right balance from being too crazy over the top, like something like Grand Theft Auto, or being so realistic and like restrictive that it's like not a video game. So like, if you're in a car chase and the perp turns down like an alleyway and drives through a back alley, and you go and crash through like bins and fences and stuff, and cause property damage. Like, in real life, if a police officer did that, the police would certainly be receiving reprimands for that, but they don't want the player to feel like that they're going to be punished for doing video gamey stuff. So, that's fine. And the same thing happens for accidental deaths. I think the way that they sort of described it to me is that if the game thinks that you're purposely going out of your way to break the rules, like, you're actively killing civilians and stuff, then you will be punished for it. But if a CPU civilian accidentally walks into a gunshot, right, and you accidentally kill someone, then the game won't punish you for it, right? Like, there's like a threshold between what the player, because what they don't want is the player to get frustrated because one of their stray bullets accidentally hit a CPU in the back, NPC in the background, and then the game's like, well, why did you cause this casualty? Your partner will like yell at you if you accidentally hurt a civilian. He'll be like, hey, watch where you're driving, or if you accidentally shoot one of your fellow police officers, he'll be like, hey, watch where you're aiming, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I say all this because I want to stress the fact that it's not a game like GTA where you can just go buck wild. They are trying to make it very much like an accurate police sim, but also giving a bit of lenience towards, because it's a video game and they don't want players to be frustrated, I guess.
Oh no, dude! If it was more like GTA, it would be more realistic.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just not describing it very well. I think it will make sense when you play it. But anyway, that was a long tangent for what I was not my main takeaway for this. My main takeaway for this, my main thing about this game that I really enjoyed was its dedication to the role play of it. So let's say there's a bank robbery going on, right? So you have a bank robbery, they open fire on you, so you open fire back. Every enemy has 2 life meters. They have a health meter and then a morale meter. And if their morale meter drops, then they'll drop their weapon, put their hands up, and be like, I surrender. And if they do that, then you can't shoot and kill them. They've given up. So you go over, you can book them, put handcuffs on them, and then what you can do is you can just put your handcuffs on them and then go off and do something else and leave it up to the AI to deal with everything there. Or you yourself, if you want, can take the criminal, put him in the back of your car, drive back to the police station, take him out, put him in, like, arrest him officially and put him in the jail cell yourself if you want. There's no actual... You get a bit of experience for doing that, but there's no, like, massive benefit for yourself as a player for doing all of that when you could leave it up to the NPC, the AI to do. But it's about how dedicated you want to be to being a police officer. You can also do stuff like any NPC in the game, you can pull them over and ID them or breathalyze them or check their belongings for stuff, and they might just have regular stuff on them. They might have like narcotics or illegal drugs on them. You can do stuff like you'll be driving around and you'll see a car go by, and if you want, you can put your sirens on and pull that car over. Like it's like not a story thing. It's just something you can do, and then if they pull over, you can question the guy inside, and like you can question the guy inside the car, and you could breathalyze him, and if it comes up with the breathalyzer that he's been drink driving, then you can arrest him and stuff like that and confiscate the car. Or if you put your sirens on, they might speed up and it will initiate a car chase. And the car chase sections as well as the helicopter sections feel more like a tactics game. So you have to keep following them yourself, but the better you are at keeping track of the criminal, you get points for it, and then you can use those points to request in backups or set up barricades. And so it's all about thinking, what's the best thing to do in this situation? Do I set up a barricade to force the guy to turn down a specific road until I've trapped him? Or do I call up as many police cars as possible and basically flood him with police officers? Yes, you can do a civil asset forfeiture, I guess, or doodle. I never actually did it to a civilian. I did check the pockets of the guy who robbed the bank though and took his stuff.
I see.
But like, so the game will also have stuff like you might be on your way to a crime, like a story crime, and then you'll see other police officers, the AI, on their way to their own crime. And if you wanted to, you could turn around, follow the car that just went past you, and it would actually take you to a crime that's happening. I think they said to me about 50% of the crimes in the game are story-based, and 50% of the crimes are procedurally based. Mm-hmm. And they will and those will just sort of happen, and they sort of designed the game in a way where if it's popular and lots of people play it, then they could update it with more crimes and more roles and stuff like that, like, because there's obviously more in the police than just being a beat cop sort of thing. We talked about like you could potentially do like traffic warden stuff where you go around and give tickets to cars and stuff like that as a gameplay mechanic. Do traffic control, things like that. It's just like there's a lot here for anyone who's ever been interested in just seeing what it's like to be a police officer, like a day-to-day police officer. And I don't know, I appreciate the commitment to it. It was way more in-depth than I thought it would be. And I don't know, I'm not 100% sure if I've been doing it justice in how I've been describing it. But I was surprisingly pleased with it. This isn't usually the sort of game I would be into. And I certainly, if I got it, I probably wouldn't fully commit to the police officer role. I'd probably play it more like a video game. But it's there for people who like that. And it's very different to anything I've seen out there. So that's also a plus. I've not seen a game that does this. So yeah, it's certainly one to keep an eye on, because I think it's actually quite a good game. The next game I played was called Spirit of Samurai. This is the other game similar to Prince of Persia, where it's a 2D action game where you have a sword and a bow. This game's split into 3 different gameplay styles: the samurai, the kodama, and a cat. I'll start. Yeah. So the kodama I didn't get to play. I only got to play the samurai and the cat. The cat is just like a defenseless kitten, and its style of gameplay plays more like a cinematic platformer. The section I had to do was stealth based, where there's this big monster in the background and you can only run, you got to run between cover basically when it's not looking, and then do this like sort of cinematic jumping over hills, because one wrong step will jumping over holes, sorry, because one wrong step will cause something to pop out and kill you. I had issues with the cat section. Specifically, I felt like the cat section was very unforgiving. Like, it's that classic cinematic platformer feel where you take one step too far and something insta kills you, and then you're sent all the way back to the start again. It just annoyed me. I'm just gonna put it straight out there. The cat section I didn't find very fun because of that. It just seemed felt a bit too strict and wasn't very clear to the player. The samurai section though was great. The way that the combat works in this game is that you use the right stick. You don't push buttons. You push the right stick in a direction and like push it sort of up, down, or forward. And the samurai will change his stance and do attacks that swing upwards, downwards, forwards. And you can customize what sort of sword play style the samurai does. You have to unlock some of them. But, like, the forward combo is a 3... So if you push just right or left on the right stick, the samurai will do a 3-swing combo. And you can customize this 3-swing combo so that for the direction and the actual, like, sort of speed of it and all this to deal with different enemies. And then the same for the up and down. And you can seamlessly go between the 3 different styles because it's obviously on a joystick. So you can just slide up and then it'll switch to the upward stance, or slide down. And you can parry enemies, and you can also, by pressing RB, you immediately swap to your bow and arrow, and you can shoot regular arrows or fire arrows out at enemies and then immediately swap back to the sword. It's like very, very fluid, and I could tell they spent a lot of time trying to make the combat really fun. And it works.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it really pays off. It's a 2D platformer, and I think not platform action, because I wouldn't call it a beat 'em up, but I don't really know what the sort of right genre term is for this kind of game. Because it also wasn't a Metroidvania either, but it is 2D. So, but the other thing about this game that I think is really cool is that it's almost entirely done through stop motion. So that's really fun. So the samurai himself isn't, I'm pretty sure anyway, and the other NPCs aren't. But the monsters absolutely are. If you look at any of the monsters in this game, especially the one in the kitten section that shows up in the trailer, you'll see that they were very clearly made and then animated as stop motion figures first and then put into the game. They just have that vibe, and they're animated at a much lower frame rate than everything else around, than the game itself, so that they have that same stop motion feel to it. So it wasn't a surprise when I found out this game is actually being made by a previously just an animation studio in Spain. This is their first game, and you can tell that the animation was super important to them as well. This game was also, though, really early along. The samurai was voiced, but the other NPC, this woman I rescued, was voiced by, like, the AI Sam Microsoft voice.
Okay.
So you can tell this game's still got a bit to go. But their current plan is for it to come out at some point in 2024. But we'll see. Because I'm assuming that's definitely not intended. The voice acting was quite stinted, even for the samurai. But no, it's good. The samurai. I'm really curious how the Odama plays. From the brief snippets I've seen of it, it feels like that section might be a bit more Metroidvania, a bit more platformer focused. But I've only just seen bits of footage from it. I've not seen actual stuff. I've not played it. But yeah, this one was fun. And then next game is a game called Windmender, and this one comes out next month, and it seems very in depth, but it doesn't seem like my kind of game. It's a gardening survival simulator. So it's up to 4 players, and you get dropped off basically in a desert, and you have to basically build an oasis. So you have all of these gardening mechanics where you find a well, and then you fix it up, and then water comes out, and then you can dig holes and create your own streams, and then plant plants around it, and the plants will cause more greenery and stuff, and then you can harvest seeds that you can then use, and you can basically just build out this big oasis in the middle of the desert. And there are 4 different biomes in the game. I know there's a valley, and I know there's a desert, obviously, and then there's a mountain range, I think, and something else I wasn't sure about. But you have to do stuff like, you don't have a stamina meter, but you need to eat and drink. You have to drink water, eat food, to try and survive. And there is combat. You fight these things called wraiths, which are like these ghosts. And you use like basically the mirror shield from Legend of Zelda as your main weapon.
Okay.
But you've also got a parry ability, so you can parry back attacks by creating this bubble shield around you. The combat seems very basic, I'm not going to lie. And there is a story going on. They showed me bits of the story, like you have to... Because it's an ancient civilization that used to be here, and there are ghosts around from that ancient civilization, and you're effectively like rebuilding it, and you go to these temples, and you've got to rebuild the temples, but they've been taken over by the wraiths, so you have to do stuff to... You have to give offerings and prayers to get rid of the wraiths and stuff like this. So there's clearly something going on here. And the map itself, this is something I didn't quite understand the point of. But the map is like kind of procedurally generated. Like the 4 biomes are always in the same place. But like where the temples and wells are, and where like the mountain ranges are and stuff like that, changes every time you start a new game, which makes me question how long the game itself actually is, and what reason I would have to restart and play it again from the beginning. But maybe there's something there. The last thing I will say about this game is that the difficulty options are actually really interesting. They've basically decided that the player gets full customization over how difficult they want the game to be. So if you just want to do the gardening thing, you can go into the options and make it so that enemies just don't do damage to you. And that you take it, and that you can destroy enemies in one hit and stuff like that. But if you think the game's too easy, you can increase enemy damage output and enemy health and stuff. You can also increase how effective food is and how seeds are, and it makes the game very easy to cheese if you just want to play through the game to beat it. But they're sort of giving you the players the option to basically be like, if this is too hard, if you're struggling to manage your resources, or if plants are taking too long to grow because they don't grow instantly, you're meant to plant the seed and then water them and stuff like that. You can change the rate at which plants grow. You can change how long the day cycle is, I think, as well. The things like that. The amount of difficulty customization in this game is like pretty impressive. Which is fair. It's good accessibility option, I think. But yeah, I just don't know. I wasn't sold on this game. unfortunately for them. And I think that might be because games like gardening games and stuff like that sort of burn me out, and that's very clearly the focus here. It's a game about building a nice, beautiful garden in the desert, and then all of the extra story and combat and exploration stuff feels like it's second. If you do this with 4 people, though, because it is a 4-player co-op game, that might be a lot of fun. Like, you can all go off and make your own gardens elsewhere and stuff. Because it's the kind of game where you don't have to be together. If one person can just stay in one area while someone else can go off and explore a completely different other side of the world and do stuff there. And the game remembers it. It's just whoever's the host is the one who will have access to what the difficulty level and stuff like that is. They're the ones who get to change things. Voice is going, but we're nearly done.
Almost there.
Almost there. So, cup 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more games to go. So the next one is another game of the show, I think, for me, and one that I definitely should have done more research about before going into this. It's called Battle Shapers. And the quickest way I can describe this game is that it is like Doom plus Mega Man as a roguelite. So, it's a roguelite game where you play as this battle robot, and the premise of the game is very Mega Man-like. It's set in a world where people use robots all the time for their daily needs, and then a group of seemingly evil robots show up, calling themselves overlords, and take over parts of the city. And then you get woken up by this helper robot and asked to go and help. And you pick you can pick the order of the bosses that you want to tackle them in. And you go through like a roguelike dungeon sort of thing. And then you fight a boss, and once you beat the boss, you get its core. And then you can use its core to transform yourself, and it causes the main character's outfit and core ability to change. Just very Mega Man-like. But the gameplay plays a lot like Doom does, like the new Doom as well, I should say. It's very fast-paced. It's very much about getting into the enemy themselves. There's lots of different enemy variety. You can do melee attacks, dash attacks. You can shoot things, obviously. And it's just very high energy, which is cool. But because it's a roguelite, the different layouts of the biomes and stuff are all procedurally generated. You always start off a run with just the pistol and then whatever core, because the cores are like the permanent upgrades you get, as well as movement upgrades. So like you eventually unlock the ability to dash, double jump, wall run, etc. You can unlock new movement abilities, and those are also permanent. And then you just basically keep going down into dungeons, getting through and fighting the big robot boss and trying not to die. Because if you die, you'll lose the stuff for that run. And things are redoable. The dialogue is quite funny. Like, I liked how all the characters are personalized. If you beat a robot mass... I'm just going to call it... No, if you beat an overlord and then go back with that core and fight that overlord, they have funny dialogue about the fact that you're basically using their kit to fight them with. And the boss's abilities are also quite randomized. Like, they have core abilities that they always have, but then the rest of their abilities will shift every time. You start a run, and when you beat one of the overlords, the next 2 overlords get stronger. They unlock more abilities, and so the difficulty scales depending on how many of the levels you've done in a run, which is really cool. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, you can mix and match cores. So when you equip a core, it gives you a set of special abilities you can do. So one of the cores, for example, gives you a claw, gives you Wolverine type claws on one hand, and then you can dash forward and slice through people, and that's your special ability. But if you equip a second core, then you get a second set of... While you don't get these abilities, you get passive stuff. So the example that they gave me, which I'm going to now give you, is that one of the cores lets you get homing missiles, right, as a power, and another one of the cores lets you create a reflective shield in front of you that can block attacks and bounce them back. But if you have both of these cores equipped, then you get the ability to have a reflective homing shield, where anything that hits back any attack that hits back and gets reflected will become a homing projectile and start attacking anything that's close. So like you mix and match the cores in order to create new abilities, and it's pretty impressive. There's like a lot of like depth to it, and visually it looks really good. Like if you told me this was like a AAA game, I would have believed you, because it's like the presentation wise is really strong. So there's just like I think the devs are, it's a new studio, but the devs are both used to work at Ubisoft, like the main directors, and they clearly like industry vets. They clearly know what they're doing, and the game like super impressed me. I think there's a lot that people will like about this game. It comes into early access at the start of October, and we'll have everything sort of shown off. I'd go watch the trailer. I think that the latest trailer they released is really a good showcase of what this game is like. But yeah, it'll go into early access this year, and then the full version will come out when it's ready, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to take. But I was really pleased with this. I had a lot of fun. If you like Doom, if you like fast-paced first-person shooters, then this is absolutely one to check out. Yeah, so Battle Shapers is good. And then next up we have Cavern of Dreams. I couldn't find very good key art for this. It's a N64 style 3D platformer that I kind of wish.
I've seen this, I think.
I kind of wish I liked this more than I do, because N64 style 3D platformers are like my jam, right? But this game, presentation wise, feels like, have you ever seen like an emulator where someone's emulating a 3D, like an N64 game, but then they have like a HD mode where all it does is like remove like the anti-aliasing and make the pixels super obvious. That's what this game feels like to me with its UI. Like the speech bubbles will come up and you can like see where the end of the sprite that makes up that speech bubble ends, and so it looks like really unnatural and basic, at least in the demo that I played. And
yeah, that's not how N64 games are actually supposed to look.
Yeah, and like it's very much sort of designed, like it's clearly like it feels like they've made loads of N64 low poly models and texturing and stuff like that, and then plastered it onto a more modern engine, and then just been like, yeah, this is an N64 platformer. If this was played on like a CRT on an actual N64, then it would absolutely feel like it fits at home. But right now, it feels like they've gone for an N64 style platformer without actually like with the same visual style, but not actually trying to adapt to anything modern about it, about like what current technology is like. I'm also just not the biggest fan of the character designs in this game, which is obviously a big part of 3D character stuff. I think the color choice and stuff is a bit, for the main character, I should say, is I'm not the biggest fan. I don't quite know what they're doing with it. And as a game itself, like, it's fine. It plays like a N64 style platformer would play. I don't think it's as good as like the classics of that era, but I don't think it's as bad as the duds of that era either. It sort of fits somewhere firmly in the middle. Like if this was to release if this was to release like 25 years ago, I think people would look back on this game as like, yeah, that was fun, but some people might really like it and some people might not. Kind of like Chameleon Twist, I guess. It doesn't play anything like Chameleon. It doesn't play anything like Chameleon Twist, but it would have that kind of reputation, I think, if it was a game that came out 25 years ago. But yeah, I kind of wish I'd liked this game more, but I think there's a demo out for it as well, so do that. The next game is Evilings, which is another roguelike game, but this one is a bit more Pokemon inspired. So you basically, whenever you start a run, you pick a starter, and then you fight enemies as you go up, and then you get you pick like which tile you want to move to next, and then some of the tiles you'll know what's coming up. Some will be like a heal tile, some will be an enemy encounter, some will let you pick a new eviling to add to your party, and then some will let you what's the word? Some will be random, right? And your party can be as big as the amount of evilings you get. And if you get 3 of the same type of evilings, like the types in this game are weird. There's like candy, space, ghost, fire, and 2 others, I think. Slime might be one of them. But if you get like 3 candy evilings, then you can fuse them together and make a much stronger eviling. So I had like this ice cream guy who could freeze stuff, and then I got 3 of him and combined them to make a big like triple ice cream guy who was like super powerful. So it feels like there's a lot going on in this game in what you can, like, ways you can approach it. However, I did also find that this game is very simple, and I ended up going through much of it just by pressing A, basically, and just going for attacks and getting lucky when things freeze. Now, I will admit, I didn't get past the first world. I got to the very end of it, and then got my ass handed to me by the boss of that level, so I may have just done something completely wrong. But I felt my issue, I think my biggest issue with this game is that I just felt like it wasn't very clear to me. Like I said with the types, there's like candy type, and there's like demon type, and demons are weak to candy type. And unlike Pokemon, where I can sort of see, well, fire would be weak to water because that makes sense, I don't really see why demon is weak to candy. And I only know it's weak to candy because the dev told me that it was, because he was there. And when I asked him about this, because I did bring this criticism up to him, he was like, "Oh, well, if you were actually playing this game for the first time, it would tell you right at the start what the type things were. But because this is a demo, lots of people have played, it's beyond that point now." However, I think that's trusting people too much to read and remember things, and that this game should have just a way to check type advantages and disadvantages. I think it just needs clarity over its different mechanics, which it currently lacks. But yeah, that's Evilings. 2 more games, and I've left 2 of the best games for last on purpose. This one is called Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip, and this might be the funniest game I played on the show floor. So in terms of gameplay, it's very much feels like Simpsons Hit and Run. And in terms of humor, it's very much kind of like Going Under or bits of Lisa without the weird horror aspect of Lisa, like some of the dialogue. Like the way this demo starts is that Terry is at a job office chatting with this random guy. This random guy's chatting to Terry. And Terry's at this job office not to get a job, but because he wants to get a car. Because Terry's goal is that he wants to be famous, and he's going to become famous by being the guy who drives a car into space. So his end goal is to reach space. And so he wants to get a car, but he doesn't have any money, so he's going to get a job that comes with a car. But he doesn't really want to do the job either. So he's going like, oh yeah, no. When he's being asked like what sort of job he wants, he's like, I just want a job that has a car. Ideally, a job that doesn't require me to do the job and just give me the car. And when he goes in for the job meeting, the guy's like, oh, so the pay will be like. And Terry's like, I don't need the pay, just give me the car. And he's like, oh, okay. I like the cut of your jib, Terry. I think we'll get along. And then you can drive around town in this taxi. And people in the Terry universe don't die or don't like get hurt. Being run over by a car is more like an inconvenience to them. And they just get annoyed at Terry and the player. In case in point, the yellow guy in the back of this screenshot, his name is Ricky, and when you run into him, he gets really annoyed because he says that he's the guy in town who has the car. He's the one who's known for having a car, which Terry rightfully points out that he's not the only guy in town who has a car. But Ricky's like, people come up to me now and say, "Hey, Terry," and it's like, "I'm not Terry, I'm Ricky." And Terry's like, "Oh, well, you're welcome." And he's like, "It's not a compliment, Terry. I'm the dry guy who drives the car in this town." And then you have like a bumper car style battle. It's a very silly, goofy game where one of the buttons is dedicated just to making Terry go like that and make weird noises and sing as you run around. You go buy stuff in a shop and the shopkeeper's like, "I can see it in your eyes, Terry. You don't have enough money to afford anything here." And Terry's like, how do you know I don't have enough? And then rubs his eyes, is like, "Is it better now?" And he's like, "That's not how it works, Terry. Get money and come back later." The humor is very silly. And it's, Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip, I really enjoyed it. I don't know when this one comes out. It might be next year. I'd go watch the trailer, because the trailer will get the humor across way more than I ever could. But I really enjoyed this game. And now the last game, and I've saved this to last because it's a game that I'd never, ever heard of before. And it ended up being one of my favourite games. But it has a very bad. I don't like the name of the game. The game is called Declines Drops, which is just a difficult name to say. I found this game when I was just walking around the indie area, and it was on its own booth, unmanned, in like the corner of the game maker's studio booth. And I did get managed to meet the dev. I asked to speak with the dev, and he's apparently solo dev, been making this game for like 4 years. It's a game where you play as a puppet, this puppet girl. It's a 2D platformer. It is basically plays like Devil May Cry, but as a 2D game.
Okay.
It's got full combo system. It has the stylish, the rank things where it goes from E to stylish as you get your combos going up. As you run around it has huge, gigantic boss battles, various different types of attacks. All the animation is hand drawn as well, which is super nice. Because like when I first picked up, the reason I picked it up is because the hand drawn animation looks super good. In the first world, it gave me real Yoshi's Island vibes, but then the combat is like very action combo focused, running through beating up these chickens that have these big punching gloves attached to them. When I asked the dev, he actually said the game that inspired him the most was Kirby. Like 2D Kirby games, and I can see that because in a sense 2D Kirby games are very similar to Devil May Cry games in how the combat in that works. And yeah, it was just really fun. It's like super fluid. It has the main character has like a shine spark ability, like in Metroid, where you can charge up and run and then go into like shoot off in a certain direction and like bounce off of hills and stuff like that. And the enemies, there's a lot of good enemy variety, and they've all got like lots of interesting like attacks, and the player also has obviously like lots of really interesting attacks, and it's hand drawn. It's like super adorable as well. It was just like a really fun game, and it was surprising that I'd never ever heard of it before, given that it's been in development for apparently 4 or 5 years now. The plan is for it to come out next year, but I had like so much fun with it. I think that again there might be a demo on Steam. I'm not sure. There is a trailer, obviously, so go watch the trailer. But this is a game that if there's anything from this video, I think this is a demo. Yeah. So if there's anything from this stream, keep an eye out for this game specifically. Because I think it's like a lot of fun, and I think the only reason it's not talked about more is because it is just from some unknown solo dev who hasn't blown up at all or anything like that. Like, I don't think the game was kickstarted or anything, which is how like Undertale got its initial attention, being a Kickstarter game. And it's not. It doesn't have any obvious inspiration like games like Pizza Tower and Anton Blast had, and I don't think it's been to anything like Sage or anything like that. I think it's just this guy using Game Maker to build his dream game and hand drawing every single graphic and but didn't. Unlike in Cuphead, which had a very specific style, and they made a whole promo video around it. And again, I think that Cuphead was kickstarted, wasn't it? I don't know if this.
Remember.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I just yes, this is my favorite game from the show. So, try out the demo that's on Steam. See what you think of it. It was just like a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun, and I'm getting.
I'll give this one a look.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll get the game is planned to come out next year. Ideally, oh no, actually, I think it might be either the end of this year or start of next year. I think was his intended release date when I spoke to him. Unsure. It's obviously it'll come out when he's ready, but that's when he's hoping because it has been for like half a decade in the making.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all right. That's yeah, and that's it. I think that's the that's all the games I played at Gamescom. I've gone on a bit rambly and my throat is hurting, so we'll probably wrap this up. But I'm going to do a write-up, which will have a bit more uniform talk. I wanted to do this stream first because I can get coverage and talk about Gamescom out there while the event is technically still going on. Because doing the write-up I'm gonna have to find time to go write about 37 different games. To put on Source Gaming. But I have included links, like I said earlier, Steam links and stuff to all of these games in the description below, and I'm also going to go through later on today and add timestamps for all these games in the top comment, in a pinned comment, so people can, if they want to hear my opinion on a specific game, they can just jump to that point in time if they're coming at this from another point, another time. But yeah, thanks, ShadowLink, for keeping me company and listening to my ramblings for 2 hours and a half.
Anytime.
Now, and thank everyone else as well for obviously tuning into this live and all that, and anyone who tunes in not live, let me know in the comments what games you're looking forward to. I'm gonna slap the credits on here now. Gamescom was fun, but it was super tiring, and I'm ready to not think about video games for a while. But yeah, I've got a couple new games to put on my wish list, and I hope you will as well. If anyone's got any questions, obviously let me know. But until then, thanks to all of our patrons who are on screen right now, and always remember to return to the source.
Bye.